Solutions to stop violence in the classroom. Tonight, it was the focus of both lawmakers in Carson City and CCSD's Board of Trustees. Fox 5's Mike Allen starts off with a proposal coming straight from Governor Joe Lombardo.
Yes, this bill, and this is going to sound familiar, would make it easier for kids to be suspended or expelled if they're disruptive in class, especially violently disruptive. And that does sound familiar to a bill that I introduced to you earlier last week, except this one does have the support of the governor from the start.
The heart of AB 330 is focused on three main objectives. First, giving teachers the ability to control their own classroom and do their jobs. Second, giving parents peace of mind that their children are safe at school. And third, giving students a safe and supportive environment that's needed to learn.
Governor Joe Lombardo throwing his weight behind his campaign promise to address problems in Nevada schools by introducing the Safer and Supportive Schools Act, which would essentially repeal a 2019 law that introduced restorative justice to our education system.
It handcuffs teachers and administrators, leaving them powerless to address habitually misbehaving and violent students.
Now, if that term, restorative justice, sounds familiar, that's because it's also the focal point of a similar assembly bill aimed at moving away from the practice, which is defined by the state as intervention and support by the school to improve a student's behavior. Opponents of that school of thought say it endangers other students and teachers.
Every child deserves to be safe in school, and every teacher needs to be able to go to class and feel safe.
Assemblywoman Selena Torres pushing for reassurance in the bill that the needs of those disruptive students are being met in the face of a shortage of resources to do that.
This bill isn't fixing those things. And, administrator after administrator come up here today to talk about the lack of resources in those areas. And so that's what we need to be having a conversation in.
For his part, Governor Lombardo says the bill does have safeguards for those students, like requiring oversight on the amount of students who are suspended or expelled.
And also today, CCSD Board of Trustees going over best practices for student discipline, doubling down on the effort to uphold the ideals of restorative justice. At the Clark County School District Education Center, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
And Governor Lombardo will be in the Valley tomorrow promoting that school safety bill. He's expected to speak with teachers at a local high school. It's scheduled for 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. We plan to stream it live right here on fox5vegas.com.